Can you fathom the unimagined devastation a single disease might cause to a vulnerable population? Imagine, if you will, the first interactions between European settlers and indigenous people of North America. A meeting of worlds, cultures, and unfortunately, diseases, smallpox, measles, influenza, names that would soon become harbingers of devastation for the indigenous peoples. They had little to no immunity against these foreign diseases, their bodies unprepared for the onslaught. The most significant of these was the smallpox outbreak of 1492. This epidemic, arriving hot on the heels of Christopher Columbus, swept through indigenous communities with a vengeance. Some estimates suggest that up to 90% of the indigenous population in certain areas were wiped out by this single disease alone. An unimaginable catastrophe, marking the beginning of a profound health crisis. The arrival of Europeans sparked an unprecedented health crisis, forever altering the demographic landscape of North America. Can you picture the relentless waves of disease sweeping through communities, leaving devastation in their wake? Indeed, the 16th and 17th centuries were particularly brutal times for indigenous peoples in North America. Like a storm that refuses to pass, waves of measles, influenza, and tuberculosis swept across the continent, leaving little in their path untouched. These were diseases unknown to indigenous societies before European contact. They arrived uninvited, wreaking havoc on populations that had no immunity to them. The impact was swift and devastating. Within just a few years, entire communities were decimated, their numbers drastically reduced, their way of life disrupted. The toll these diseases took was not limited to loss of life. They also undermined the fabric of indigenous societies. Traditional economies were disrupted as communities struggled to cope with the loss of able-bodied individuals. Cultural practices too were compromised as the transmission of knowledge was interrupted. The onslaught of disease undermined traditional societies, economies, and cultural practices, leaving a trail of destruction across North America. Can you comprehend the added burden of violence, displacement, and forced assimilation on a population already ravaged by disease? The cataclysmic impact of epidemics was not the only challenge faced by indigenous communities. As European settlers sought new territories, indigenous peoples were caught in the crossfire. Violent conflicts, often resulting from territorial disputes, added another layer of suffering. Forced removal from ancestral lands further compounded the adversity. Indigenous communities were uprooted, their ties to their lands severed, exacerbating their vulnerability to disease. Imagine being torn from your home, your source of sustenance and spiritual connection, only to be thrust into an alien environment where disease runs rampant. And then, there was the imposition of foreign cultural norms and practices. Indigenous societies were pressured to abandon their traditional ways of life, their languages, their customs, in favor of European cultural norms. This cultural imposition, this forced assimilation, served to further weaken indigenous societies, making them more susceptible to the ravages of disease. The impact of disease was magnified by these additional stressors, compounding the tragedy experienced by indigenous peoples. Can you grasp the remarkable resilience demonstrated by indigenous communities in the face of such adversity? Throughout the centuries, amidst the waves of disease and the ravages of colonization, indigenous peoples in North America have shown an awe-inspiring ability to adapt and persevere. They developed strategies to mitigate the impact of these new diseases, to protect their populations, and to ensure their survival. Indigenous communities have maintained a steadfast commitment to preserving their cultures, languages, and traditional knowledge, despite the ongoing challenges. They have fought to keep their traditions alive, passing them down from generation to generation, ensuring that their rich cultural heritage endures. Today, indigenous peoples continue to confront the legacy of disease and colonization head-on. Their ongoing efforts to preserve their cultures, languages, and traditional knowledge are a testament to their strength and resilience. In acknowledging the profound impact of epidemics on indigenous communities, we honor their resilience and strength, and commit ourselves to the work of healing and reconciliation. Join us in our next episode as we delve into the dark chapter of forced assimilation and its lasting effects on indigenous cultures and societies. Thanks for watching. Want to learn more exciting things about interesting topics? Subscribe to Demise today and turn on push notifications to never miss a video. See you in the next one.